how to read, write and play dotted notes. Hi, I'm Anne from Rats Musica, your town musicians. If you're wondering why I'm standing in ashes and running around the bush, which is burnt, in my Rammstein t-shirt, stick around to the end of this video and I'll tell you why. Dotted notes can be really challenging to read, especially if you're not used to reading sheet music. I'm going to show you an easy method about how to work out how they sound, so that you can play more of the music you love. But first, to do that, let's go over the hierarchy of all the note values. Here's the breve, that's the double whole note, that's worth 8. Half of the value is a semibreve called a whole note, that's worth 4. Here is half the value again, that's called a minim or a half note, worth 2. Here's a crotchet, half the value of the minim or the half note, and that's worth 1. Then we get smaller and smaller. Here's the 8th note, worth half. Here's the 16th note, worth a quarter. It's also called a semiquaver. Here's a 32nd note. It's an 8th. That's called a semiquaver or a 16th note. A demi-semiquaver or a 32nd note. And the last one commonly used is this one with 4 tails or 4 beams, and that's 1/16 of this one, and it's called a demi-semiquaver or a 64th note. Let's take the first example, which is a double whole note or a breve. We put a dot next to it. Take the one directly below and have 3 of them. So this is worth 4. So if you have that plus that plus that equals 3/4 of 12. So it's worth 12 beats. A dotted whole note, take the one below. So a dotted whole note is that, that, and that. Dotted minim or a dotted half note, take the crotchet or the quarter note and have 3 of them. That, that, and that. So let's just change these here. It's now worth 12 with the dot, 6 with the dot, 3 with the dot. If we put a dot on the quarter note, use 3 of these. Remember, with the 8th note, you can have them with a tail or with a beam. So we're going to join them together. So that's worth 3 of these, 3 halves, which is 1 1/2. Dot. Use these semiquavers or 16th notes. So we'll use 3 of these. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So you can see the terminology gets a bit confusing, but it doesn't make any difference. Music is music. 3. Have I confused myself? 3/4 of a beat. Moving right along. Dotted semiquaver or a dotted 16th note. Go to the one below. We need 3 of these. 3 demi-semiquavers. They have 3 tails or 3 beams. Don't see these often, but they do crop up from time to time. That's a dotted demi-semiquaver or a dotted 32nd note. So go to the one below, which is usually the smallest value we use. We don't really, I'm not sure I've ever seen anything smaller than that, with 5 tails, but have nice long stems. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, equals 3/16. Now, in theory, we could have a dot here, but the reality is there's nothing smaller really in standard musical notation. So the hemi, demi, semiquavers get to be all by themselves. They don't get a dot usually. With all these dotted notes, the dot goes next to the note, not underneath it or above it. A dot under or over a note has a completely different meaning, nothing to do with rhythm. All of these notes have corresponding rests or silence. So like dotted quarter note rest, dotted eighth note rest. I'll cover those in a separate video. So 6/8, one of my favourite time signatures, uses 2 dotted crotchets, 2 dotted quarter notes as their 2 beats in each bar. 9/8's pretty similar, except it's got 3 dotted quarter notes or crotchets. You might be interested to know, if you're a Rammstein fan, that Rammstein have written a couple of tunes at least that use 12/8. That's 4 dotted crotchets, 4 dotted quarter notes. These include Keine and Ich tue dir weh. Time for some practice. Here are 3 whole notes, semibreves, sitting there minding their own business. They sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then along comes a dot. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's put stems on these. 3 minims, or 3 half notes that sound like this: 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And putting dots in, they sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. For the crotchets or quarter notes and anything shorter, I found these burnt banksia things. This can be a big one. Okay. So for dotted quarter notes or crotchets, we have to use a different approach because we're now dealing in fractions. Here's 4 quarter notes or crotchets. It just sounds like this. I'm going to dot 2 of them. I had to get a new dot because the other one keeps falling apart because it's just burnt wood. There's one dot and here's the other one. This one here, that's worth 3 eighth notes or 3 quavers. This one's going to be worth 2 quavers, 3 quavers, 2 quavers. Count in eighth notes or quavers and it sounds like this: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. A common pattern in Western music, pop music or not, is to have a dotted note followed by. So we've got 3 quarters and 1 quarter. 3 quarters and 1 quarter. They're tails. Counting in quavers again sounds like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The other common combination is to start with the short note and then have the dotted note. So all we do is swap these around. Which just sounds like this. 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, 3. I'd also like to show you double dotting. So it's quite logical. Let's do it this way. So this happens a lot in Baroque music. So say these are quarter notes or crotchets. I'll get another dot. We'll go back to the long note at the beginning. So this is a double dot. So with a single dot, you know, we only had quavers or eighth notes. But with a double dot, all you do is add a tail. If I can find one. Oh, there it is. So that's double dotting. And then in that case, you wouldn't count in quavers or eighth notes, you'd count in 16th notes, yeah? You have 4 semiquavers or 4 16th notes per crotchet or per quarter note. So that the two of them together have to add up to 8. So if you're double dotted, this is worth 7 and that's worth 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Simples. In this example, I've got a dot after the first 2 crotchets or quarter notes and then just a normal quarter note at the end. Think in eighth notes or quavers, so it's going to sound like this. So I'll do it over and over so you can get in the groove then. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. You worked so well today, you deserve a little Rammstein treat. And the reason why I'm wearing my Rammstein t-shirt is because if you don't know the band, Rammstein love pyrotechnics. So about a month ago, they did a hazard reduction burn where we live. This is to make it much safer for us to be living here. There's only one road in and one road out of where we live, and after the terrible fires 2 summers ago, it's long overdue. So the burn was a light burn, so they didn't just raze everything to the ground like Rammstein might.